cut through the noise, sift through the research, and extract those truly valuable nuggets of knowledge to help you feel confidently informed. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into something absolutely foundational, yet uh, endlessly fascinating: the intricate world of English grammar. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, grammar, isn't that just a bunch of dusty rules from high school? Or maybe, I already speak English, why do I need a deep dive into its mechanics? Well, that's precisely our mission today. We're not here to just reteach the absolute basics you might already know. Instead, we're going to pull back the curtain on why these structures matter, how they subtly shape meaning, and how a nuanced understanding of them can elevate your communication, taking it from merely functional to truly impactful and persuasive. Think of this as getting under the hood of a beautifully engineered machine. We're going beyond the user manual, really, to understand the precise calibration of each component. Okay, let's unpack this.
And that's exactly the right approach for you, our listener. You probably already have a solid grasp of English, but want to refine and empower your expression. This isn't about rote memorization. It's about unlocking a deeper intuition for language, understanding the sort of implicit contracts we make with our audience through our word choices and structures. When you truly grasp the underlying principles of grammar, you gain this power to communicate with exceptional clarity, precision, and even artistry. Whether you're crafting a critical report, delivering a compelling speech, or simply ensuring your meaning is, unambiguous in a casual chat, it just transforms your ability to connect.
So let's begin by briefly revisiting the absolute core. What is grammar, really, at its essence? At its heart, it's the systematic blueprint guiding how words and phrases fit together to create comprehensible meaning. It's like the agreed-upon architecture for constructing our thoughts into sentences.
Exactly. Without this shared architecture, communication would just devolve into, linguistic chaos.
Right. Imagine a conversation where every word was just a free agent, randomly colliding with others. It would be impossible to deduce intent or information, just noise.
Utterly impossible.
Grammar rules are what impose order and logic on that potential chaos. They allow us to arrange words in a sequence that the listener or reader's brain can, hopefully, effortlessly decode. Consider the difference between "I ate pizza yesterday," super clear, universally understood statement, versus, say, a jumbled collection of the same word.
Or even just a slight reordering.
Yeah, like "pizza I ate yesterday." You might figure it out on context, sure, but it immediately signals something's off from standard English. Maybe it hints at a non-native speaker or an intentional stylistic choice. It's those subtle shifts in word order, dictated by grammatical rules, that carry immense weight. They convey not just what we mean, but how we mean it, and even our perceived proficiency.
What's truly fascinating here is how grammar functions as this kind of universal operating system for meaning. It's not merely about avoiding errors, though that's part of it. It's about building these intricate networks of thought. When we adhere to grammatical conventions, we're essentially pre-calibrating our message for optimal reception.
Recalibrating, I like that.
And this extends across all forms of communication: written, spoken, formal, informal, texting, you name it. In a professional email, precise grammar lends credibility and professionalism. Obvious, right?
Sure.
But in a creative piece, deliberately deviating from standard grammar can evoke specific emotional responses or character traits. So understanding grammar is less about constraint and more about expanding your expressive toolkit. It allows for both rigorous clarity and deliberate artistic freedom.
So it empowers you to choose, consciously, how you want your message to land, rather than leaving it to chance.
Precisely. And to build anything meaningful, we first need to look at the fundamental tools at our disposal, the 8 parts of speech.
Absolutely. Let's think of these 8 parts of speech as the specialized components in your linguistic engineering kit. You probably already know what they are, generally, but today we're going to delve into their crucial functions and the subtle ways they impact meaning and flow within a sentence. It's really about appreciating the nuanced role each component plays in building a truly effective thought.
Exactly. This section is about recognizing the distinct jobs each part of speech performs, not just in isolation, but how their interplay creates the rich tapestry of English. Each part serves a unique purpose, and understanding those nuances is, key to mastering expressive communication.
All right, let's go beyond the basic definitions and explore the deeper functionality. Starting with nouns. We know nouns name people, places, things, or ideas. They are the bedrock, the who and what of our sentences.
The core entity.
Right. They frequently serve as the subject, the active agent, or the object, the recipient of an action. For instance, in a simple sentence like, "The engineer designed the bridge," both engineer and bridge are nouns. One's the subject, the other's the object. Pretty straightforward.
They provide the core entities around which the sentence revolves.
But think about how nouns can be manipulated. Take a verb like decide. If you say, I decided quickly, decided is clearly the verb.
Yeah.
But if you say, my decision was quick, decision is now a noun. That process, I think, is called nominalization.
That's it, nominalization, turning verbs or adjectives into nouns.
And that shift from verb to noun can make a sentence feel more formal or abstract. You see it a lot in academic or bureaucratic writing, right?
Oh, definitely. It changes the focus from the act itself to the concept of the act.
Interesting.
What's crucial about nouns is their anchoring quality. They give our language concrete references, whether physical or conceptual. And as you mentioned, nominalization is a powerful tool, though, sometimes overused.
Oh, so?
Well, while it can add gravitas and conciseness sometimes, excessive use can also lead to rather verbose or less direct prose. Passive voice often creeps in too.
Oh, okay.
Also, consider sentences with collective nouns like team or committee or faculty. Do they take a singular or plural verb?
Oh, yeah, that's tricky. The team is winning, or the team are arguing.
Exactly. It often depends on whether you view them as a single unit or as individual members acting separately, which naturally leads us into interesting dilemmas for subject-verb agreement later on. Nouns are far from just static labels. They are dynamic elements that shape the very perceived reality of our sentences.
Okay, dynamic anchors.
Okay.
Got it. Next up, we have pronouns. We know they replace nouns to avoid repetition, making our language flow more smoothly. Instead of Dr. Smith presented Dr. Smith's findings to Dr. Smith's colleagues.
Which sounds incredibly clunky.
Right, we naturally say, Dr. Smith presented his findings to his colleagues. Much better. That's foundational.
Essential for fluency.
But where pronouns get really interesting, and sometimes, frankly, quite tricky, is in their referential clarity, ensuring it's clear who or what they're referring back to.
The antecedent, yes.
Consider the sentence. John told Mike he was wrong.
Ah, the classic ambiguity example.
Exactly. Who was wrong? Was it John admitting fault or John accusing Mike?
The sentence structure itself doesn't tell us definitively.
Right. While it's grammatically correct on the surface, the sentence is semantically unclear. As communicators, we have to be mindful of that potential confusion. Often you'd need to rephrase it to remove any doubt, like John told Mike that Mike was wrong, or perhaps John admitted to Mike that he, John, was wrong.
You have to explicitly clarify.
It highlights that grammar isn't just about following rules, but about achieving precise meaning. And think about the evolving use of gender-neutral pronouns, too, like singular they, them. That's a grammatical adaptation driven by social evolution, isn't it? Shows how dynamic language is.
It certainly does. And while pronouns are fluency facilitators, they are also a common source of misinterpretation, as your example showed. For advanced communication, especially, it's not enough that a pronoun can refer back to something. It must unambiguously refer to only one thing. The antecedent must be crystal clear.
Especially in certain contexts.
Absolutely. Think legal documents, scientific reports, technical manuals, any context where precision is absolutely paramount. Any ambiguity could be disastrous. Furthermore, understanding the nuances of indefinite pronouns like everyone or nobody, and how they interact with subject-verb agreement, they usually take a singular verb, like everyone is here. Despite implying multiple people, that's a subtler challenge.
Right, each has to finish.
Exactly. Pronouns, small as they are, carry significant weight in the clarity and cohesion of our message. Don't underestimate them.
Duly noted. Now for the dynamic core of any sentence. Verbs. We often call them action words. And yes, many do tell us what the subject is doing. Run, eat, analyze, think.
They provide the dynamism.
But verbs are far more versatile than just action. They also convey states of being, using linking verbs like is, seems, appears, feels.
Linking the subject to a description or state.
Or they convey complex relationships, like possession with has or owns. They're the engines that drive the narrative and express the state of affairs. For instance, the scientist analyzed the data. Analyzed is the clear action, straightforward. But consider the theory is complex. Here is a linking verb, connecting the subject theory to its description complex. No real action there.
Just state of being.
Or think about auxiliary verbs, sometimes called helping verbs, like has in she has completed the project. Has helps the main verb completed express a specific tense, the present perfect in this case.
Right, forming compound verb tenses.
Even more subtly, think about modal verbs. Can, could, may, might, must, should, will, would. These add crucial layers of meaning: possibility, necessity, obligation, permission.
Modality, yes.
You must submit the report carries a very different weight than you should submit the report, which is different again from you could submit the report.
Completely different implications.
These subtle choices in verb usage, especially modals, significantly alter the message's impact and tone.
Verbs are indeed the conductors of the sentence, orchestrating its meaning and conveying its timeline and modality. They are absolutely central. Understanding the distinction between transitive verbs, those that take a direct object, like eat in, eat pizza,
Something receives the action.
yes, and intransitive verbs, those that don't need an object, like sleep in, I sleep soundly.
The action is self-contained.
Right. Knowing that distinction can help you construct clearer, more concise sentences. Another fascinating area, though perhaps a bit more advanced, is the use of verbals.
Verbals.
Yeah, these are verb forms that function as other parts of speech. There are gerunds, which are ing verbs acting as nouns, like running in running is healthy. Here, running is the subject.
Ah, okay. Like swimming is fun.
Exactly. Then there are infinitives, the to form, like to run in I like to run, often acts as a noun, adjective, or adverb. And finally, participles. These are verb forms, often ending in ing, present participle, or in, past participle, used as adjectives, like running in the running water or broken in the broken window.
Okay, so verbs doing other jobs.
Precisely. These forms add tremendous flexibility and compression to our language, allowing us to pack more meaning into fewer words. But they also require careful handling to avoid things like dangling modifiers or awkward phrasing.
Right, like running down the street, the sign suddenly appeared. Who was running?
Exactly. A classic dangling modifier. The verb is truly where the sentence gains its life and purpose, but it requires careful handling.
Moving on from the engine to the decoration, maybe. Adjectives. These are the words that add color and precision, describing nouns and pronouns. They allow us to paint a vivid picture rather than just stating basic facts. Tall, blue, innovative, crucial. These words inject life and detail.
They enrich the nouns, giving them specific qualities.
Consider the sentence. The diligent student submitted a comprehensive report. Here, diligent describes the student, giving us insight into their character, and comprehensive describes the report, telling us about its scope. They provide crucial context and detail.
Absolutely.
But adjectives have their own subtle rules, don't they? For example, the order of adjectives seems almost instinctual for native speakers, but it can be a real challenge otherwise.
Oh, yes. The royal order of adjectives, some call it.
Right. We instinctively say a small, old red car, not a red, old, small car.
Yeah.
It just sounds wrong.
It does. There's a conventional order, though it's not absolutely rigid. Generally, it goes something like opinion, lovely, awful, size, small, huge, age, old, new, shape, round, square, color, red, blue, origin, Italian, solar, material, wooden, metal, and purpose, running shoes, dining table.
Wow, okay. That's quite specific.
It is, but we mostly follow it without thinking. Deviating from this conventional order, even if grammatically permissible in a strict sense, can make a sentence sound unnatural or clunky.
So mastery here means making your prose effortlessly elegant, following these subtle conventions.
Adjectives are indeed vital for nuance and specificity. They move us beyond generic statements, a car, into detailed imagery, a sleek new electric car. And the order of adjectives you mentioned is a perfect example of a rule that's often learned implicitly but is powerful when understood explicitly. It helps refine style. Another interesting aspect is how adjectives can sometimes function as nouns when referring to a group defined by that quality, like the rich, or the poor, or the unemployed.
Ah, yeah. They stand in for rich people, poor people.
Exactly. Furthermore, the choice of a stronger, more precise adjective can often eliminate the need for an adverb modifying a weaker one. Instead of saying someone is very happy, you might say they are elated or ecstatic.
More impactful.
Much more. This kind of precise word choice, fueled by a strong vocabulary and an understanding of adjectives, significantly strengthens communication.
All right, from adjectives, let's move to their closely related but distinct counterparts, adverbs. These are the words that modify verbs, adjectives, or even other adverbs. They typically tell us how, when, where, or to what degree something happens or a quality exists.
They add layers of detail to the action or description.
Take, she sings beautifully. Here, beautifully is an adverb modifying the verb sings, telling us how she sings. Simple enough. But adverbs can also modify adjectives, like in he was very happy. Here, very is an adverb intensifying the adjective happy.
Telling us to what degree he was happy.
Exactly. And they can even modify other adverbs. She runs too fast. Here, too, is an adverb modifying the adverb fast.
Right, it adds another layer of degree.
What's fascinating about adverbs is their flexibility in placement sometimes. While many, maybe most, end in watchfully, not all do think fast, well, often here.
Good point. The lummy ending is a common marker, but not universal.
And their position in the sentence can sometimes subtly alter the meaning or emphasis. Compare she quickly ate her dinner versus she ate her dinner quickly.
Slight shift in focus. The first perhaps emphasizes the manner before the action, the second places it after.
Yeah. Understanding these subtle shifts allows for more deliberate control over the tone and pacing of your sentences.
Adverbs are really the precision tools of language, enabling us to fine-tune the meaning of actions and descriptions. Beyond simply telling us how, like carefully, slowly, adverbs of frequency, always, sometimes, never, degree, extremely, somewhat, hardly, and certainty, probably, definitely, maybe, allow for an incredibly rich spectrum of expression.
They let you qualify your statements.
Precisely. And then there are sentence adverbs, which modify the entire sentence or clause, expressing the speaker's attitude or viewpoint. Words like, frankly, hopefully, clearly, unfortunately.
Like, honestly, I don't know the answer.
Exactly. It frames the whole statement. Hopefully the project will succeed. This signals the speaker's optimistic stance on the entire proposition. Mastering adverbial placement and choice is key to creating elegant, nuanced prose that avoids ambiguity and conveys exactly the intended emphasis. It truly refines your message.
Next up, we have prepositions. These are small, but gosh, incredibly mighty words. They establish the relationship between a noun or pronoun and other words in the sentence, typically indicating location in, on, under, direction, to, from, across, or time before, after, during. You know them well.
The little connectors that provide context?
The data is on the server. On shows the relationship between data and server. He walked into the room. Into shows the direction of movement relative to the room.
Clear spatial relationships.
But the real complexity with prepositions, where things get a bit messy, often comes with idiomatic expressions or particularly phrasal verbs.
Yes. The bane of many English learners.
Right. For example, the verb look can combine with different prepositions to create wildly different meanings. Look up, find information, look down on, disapprove of, look after, take care of, look out for, watch for danger or someone's interests.
The meaning isn't easily derivable from look plus up or look plus after.
Exactly. These are not always logically predictable and often need to be learned as fixed phrases, as chunks of meaning. This is where the simple definition of showing relationship expands into a whole new linguistic challenge, highlighting the sometimes quirky, idiomatic nature of English.
Prepositions are the crucial connectors, grounding our sentences in specific contexts, spatial, temporal, or abstract. They create this web of relationships within a sentence. And you've hit on a critical point, phrasal verbs. They are absolutely rampant in everyday English, both spoken and written. They demonstrate how a single preposition can utterly transform the meaning of a common verb.
Like give up, put off, take over.
Exactly. This means that merely knowing the individual meaning of put and off doesn't tell you what put off, meaning postpone, actually means. This idiomatic nature can be a significant hurdle for clarity if not handled carefully. Misusing a preposition in a phrasal verb, or even in a standard construction, depend on, not depend of, can completely change the intended meaning or render a sentence nonsensical. Understanding the correct prepositional usage is paramount for precision, especially in more formal writing.
Okay, moving on from connectors to joiners, conjunctions. These are the linguistic engineers, you could say, that join words, phrases, or entire clauses, allowing us to build more complex and sophisticated sentences. And, but, or, because. So, although they act as semantic bridges between ideas.
Linking elements together, creating structure.
Consider, I like coffee and I like tea. And simply links two independent clauses, showing addition. Both are true. She was tired, but she kept working. But links two contrasting ideas or clauses.
Showing opposition or contrast.
What's interesting for a deeper dive, and crucial for sophisticated writing, is distinguishing between the different types of conjunctions. First, you have coordinating conjunctions. These join grammatically equal elements, words, phrases, or independent clauses. The common ones are often remembered by the acronym MBOISOIS for and, nor, but, or yet, so.
Joining equals. like two nouns or two complete sentences.
Right. Then you have subordinating conjunctions. These introduce a dependent clause, a clause that cannot stand alone as a complete sentence, and link it to an independent clause. Examples include because, although, while, if, when, since, unless.
Creating a main idea and a secondary modifying idea.
Exactly. For instance, although it was raining, we still went for a walk.
Yeah.
Here, although introduces the dependent clause, although it was raining, which modifies or provides context for the main independent clause, we still went for a walk.
The relationship isn't equal. One part depends on the other.
Understanding this distinction between coordinating and subordinating conjunctions is crucial for crafting sentences with precise relationships of cause, effect, contrast, concession, condition, or time. It allows for really rich, nuanced expression beyond simple statements.
Conjunctions are indeed the architects of complex thought. They enable us to move beyond simple, declarative sentences like, "It rained, we walked."
Which sounds pretty childish.
Right. They facilitate the construction of compound sentences using coordinating conjunctions and complex sentences using subordinating conjunctions, which are essential for conveying intricate ideas, logical arguments, and detailed narratives. The choice of conjunction profoundly impacts the perceived logical relationship between the ideas being linked. Using "and" might simply add information, but using "therefore" implies a direct causal link, while "however" signals a definite contrast.
These choices guide the reader's interpretation.
Absolutely. They directly influence how an audience perceives the connection between your points. Furthermore, understanding parallelism, the idea that when conjunctions connect elements, those elements should be grammatically similar in form, is vital for elegant and persuasive writing.
Can you give an example of faulty parallelism?
Sure, something like, "She likes hiking, swimming, and to read books." You have two gerunds, hiking, swimming, and then an infinitive, to read.
It should be hiking, swimming, and reading.
Exactly. Maintaining that parallel structure makes the sentence flow better and feel more balanced. Faulty parallelism can make a sentence awkward and unclear, demonstrating how these small joining words play a huge role in stylistic grace and clarity.
Okay, and finally, rounding out our 8 parts of speech, we have interjections. These are the expressive outbursts of language, words, or short phrases that convey strong emotions or sudden feelings, often standing apart from the main sentence structure. Wow, oh no, yay, ouch, well, uh-oh. They are direct bursts of raw feeling.
Emotional punctuation almost.
Wow, that's an incredible insight. Here, wow expresses surprise and admiration, setting the tone for the statement that follows. Or, oh no, the deadline is today. Oh no instantly conveys dismay or sudden, perhaps unpleasant realization.
A gut reaction put into words.
While interjections are powerful for conveying immediate emotion, especially in spoken language, or very informal writing like texting or social media, their usage is generally quite limited in formal or academic contexts.
Definitely. You wouldn't typically start a research paper abstract with, "wow."
Probably not. Overuse, even in informal settings, can make writing sound unprofessional, overly dramatic, or even juvenile. They serve a very specific, impactful role, often sitting slightly outside the main grammatical structure of the sentence, acting as a direct window into the speaker's immediate emotional state.
Interjections are precisely that. Linguistic exclamations that inject an immediate, visceral human reaction into the flow of communication. They are conversational punctuation, adding personality and directness where appropriate. However, as you rightly noted, their impact is highest when used sparingly and contextually. In a formal context, conveying emotion usually requires more structured grammatical constructions rather than these direct interjections.
How so?
Well, instead of writing, "wow, the results were complex," a formal report might state, "the complexity of the results was noteworthy," or "the results presented significant complexity." The emotion or emphasis is conveyed through word choice and structure, not a direct outburst.
Got it. It highlights the contextual sensitivity of all our grammatical choices, really.
Absolutely. It's all about choosing the right tool for the job.
Okay, so we've appreciated the individual genius, if you will, of the 8 parts of speech. Now let's talk about how they all coalesce, how we truly engineer them into complete, meaningful thoughts. Sentence structure. While the basic English structure we all learned is subject plus verb plus object, SVO, the deep dive here is in understanding how we expand, modify, and sometimes even cleverly subvert this core structure to achieve diverse communicative goals.
Moving from the components to the assembled machine.
Exactly. We all know the classic, John subject, eats verb, and apple object. Simple, clear, SVO. But what happens when we start adding layers? Consider Maria, subject, gave verb, her friend, indirect object, a book, direct object.
Still fundamentally SVO, but with an added element.
Right. Here, her friend is the recipient of the direct object, a book. Understanding the roles of direct and indirect objects allows us to precisely convey who is receiving what, adding richer detail to our actions.
Crucial for clarity when there are multiple objects involved.
Or think about how we can build complexity by expanding each part. For instance, the dedicated research team, that's an expanded subject, noun phrase, meticulously analyzed, verb plus an adverb, the unforeseen anomalies in the data, an expanded direct object, quite complex, identified during the initial experimental phase. And that's a long modifying phrase tacked onto the object.
A beast of a sentence.
It is.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, it still adheres to that core SVO structure. The subject is team, the verb is analyzed, and the object is anomalies. Everything else modifies those core parts.
So the real art lies in expanding these components with modifiers, adjectives, adverbs, prepositional phrases, clauses, without sacrificing the underlying clarity or becoming unwieldy.
It's like building an incredibly elaborate machine, adding gears and levers, all while ensuring its core function remains perfectly clear and efficient.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, understanding how that fundamental SVO backbone accommodates increasing complexity is absolutely paramount. It's key for both comprehending sophisticated texts, think academic journals, legal contracts, dense reports, and for articulating your own nuanced ideas effectively.
So it works both ways, reading and writing.
Absolutely. It's the framework that holds together everything from a simple command, stop, to a multi-clause scientific hypothesis spanning several lines. And this raises an important question for you, the listener. How does understanding the potential expansion of SVO help you dissect those incredibly dense sentences you encounter, maybe in professional reading or complex literature, and still reliably extract the core meaning?
It gives you a map to navigate the complexity.
Exactly. It's not just about building your own sentences, it's about deconstructing others. It's also about recognizing when a sentence you've written has become too complex, maybe leading to ambiguity or just cognitive overload for the reader.
Knowing when to break it down or simplify.
Precisely. Knowing when to simplify or restructure for maximum impact and clarity. The power here is in deliberate choice and intentional design, not just stringing words together.
Okay, so from the static structure, let's now talk about adding the crucial element of time. Tenses. Tenses are absolutely critical because they tell us when an action occurs or a state exists, enabling us to place events accurately on a timeline, past, present, or future. Without precise tense usage, narratives would become utterly chaotic and confusing. Imagine trying to follow a story where events jumped randomly between now, yesterday, and tomorrow with no clear markers.
It would be impossible. Tenses are the timekeepers of language, as you said. They are indispensable for clear storytelling, for accurate reporting of events, and for simply discussing sequences of actions in a logical order. The choice of tense subtly, but profoundly, impacts the meaning and implication of a statement. It indicates things like completion, ongoing action, habitual action, or future possibility.
Let's start with the present tense. Generally, we use this for actions happening now, like I am speaking, or for actions that happen regularly or are generally true. She studies every night. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius.
Grounding us in the now or in established facts.
For the present simple tense, we use the base form of the verb. The only twist is adding an S for third-person singular subjects, he, she, it, or a singular noun. So I work, you work, we work, they work, but he works, she works, the system works. That S ending is key for agreement.
A very common point of error, actually.
Definitely. Now, beyond the simple present, there's also the present continuous tense, sometimes called present progressive. This is usually formed with the present tense of to be, am, is, are, plus the ing form of the main verb, as in I am eating breakfast right now.
Indicating an action in progress.
Right. It emphasizes an action happening at the moment of speaking, or perhaps a temporary action happening around the present time. She is studying for her exams this week.
It adds a sense of immediacy or temporariness.
Knowing when to use the simple present, I work, versus the present continuous, I am working, subtly but significantly shifts the meaning. One implies a general habit or fact. The other implies an action currently unfolding.
The present tense's versatility is quite remarkable when you think about it. It grounds statements in immediate reality, I am here, general truth, the earth revolves around the sun, or habitual action, he walks his dog every morning. And that distinction between simple present and present continuous is a prime example of how slight grammatical variations convey different aspects of time and action. Simple present for facts and routines, continuous for dynamism and ongoing nature.
It's not just arbitrary rules.
Not at all. Furthermore, we even use the present simple tense for future events sometimes, but only when they're part of a fixed schedule or timetable, like the train leaves at 7 p.m. tomorrow or the conference starts next Monday.
Ah, right. Even though it's the future, we use the present form.
Yes, it illustrates how English tenses, while generally logical, also have specific idiomatic uses that require a more nuanced understanding beyond the basic past, present, future division.
Okay, next, let's move back in time to the past tense. This generally describes actions that have already happened and were completed at some point before now.
Finished actions.
For most regular verbs, forming the simple past tense is straightforward. You just add ed, or sometimes just ed if the verb already ends in e, to the base form. Like play becomes played, watched becomes watched, walk becomes walked, decide becomes decided. I visited my grandmother yesterday. The action is done and dusted, completed in the past.
Nice and regular.
However, the real challenge for many learners, and sometimes even for native speakers needing to be precise, lies with the huge number of irregular verbs. These are verbs that don't follow the standard ed rule for their past tense, and often their past participle too.
They have unique past forms.
Exactly. Think of common ones like eat, becoming ate, go becoming went, see becoming saw, write becoming wrote, becoming began, know becoming knew. The list goes on and on.
Hundreds of them.
These simply must be learned, mostly through exposure and practice. There's often no simple rule. He went to the store is a basic example, but mastering these irregular forms is a key indicator of fluency and grammatical command. They are everywhere in everyday speech.
Irregular verbs are indeed a unique and prominent characteristic of English, largely a legacy of its older Germanic roots. They are absolutely critical for accurately recounting past events and constructing narratives. You can't really tell a story without them. Beyond the simple past tense, I ate, understanding the past perfect tense is important for more complex timelines. This is formed with had plus the past participle of the verb, as in I had already eaten before he arrived.
Okay, so had eaten, what does that signify?
It signifies an action that was completed before another specific action or time in the past. In the example, the eating was finished before the arrival happened. Both are in the past, but the past perfect marks the earlier past action.
Ah, layering the past.
Precisely. This level of precision in expressing chronology is vital for sophisticated storytelling, historical recounting, or explaining sequences of past events clearly. When tenses are used inconsistently or incorrectly, especially mixing simple past and past perfect inappropriately, it can make a narrative jarring and very difficult to follow, even for an informed audience.
Right, it messes up the timeline in the listener's head.
Completely.
Okay, finally for tenses, let's look ahead to the future tense. This describes actions that will happen or haven't occurred yet. It's how we express plans, predictions, intentions, and possibilities about what's to come.
Projecting forward in time.
The primary ways we form the future tense in English are by using the modal verb will, followed by the base form of the main verb. For example, I will study tomorrow. Or by using the structure going to, followed by the base form of the main verb. For example, she is going to visit her friend next week.
Two main constructions.
Right. And while they're often interchangeable in meaning, especially in casual conversation, there can be a subtle distinction in usage. Will is often used for spontaneous decisions made at the moment of speaking. Okay, I'll help you. For predictions based on opinion or general knowledge. I think it will rain tomorrow. For promises, I will call you later. Or for expressing willingness or refusal.
More general future or spur of a moment?
Kind of, whereas be going to often implies a pre-planned intention or decision made before the moment of speaking. We're going to launch the product next month, suggests the plan is in place.
Oh.
It's also frequently used for predictions based on present evidence. Look at those dark clouds. It's definitely going to rain.
More about intention or evidence-based prediction.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Understanding this subtle nuance allows you to convey not just what will happen, but also perhaps the degree of certainty, the nature of the intention, or the basis for the prediction. It's a small choice, maybe, but one that can add depth to your communication.
The future tense allows us to navigate the realm of foresight, planning, and anticipation. And that distinction between will and going to is an excellent example of how English often offers multiple paths to convey similar meanings, each carrying a slightly different connotation or implication. Choosing the right one depends on the context and the precise shade of meaning you want to convey. Furthermore, just as we have the past perfect, there's also the future perfect tense. This is formed with will have plus the past participle, as in, by next year, I will have completed my degree.
Okay, will have completed. What's that doing?
It allows us to project ourselves to a specific point in the future, next year, and look back at an action, completing the degree that will be finished by that future time.
Looking back from the future, that's mind-bending.
It can feel that way, but this kind of advanced temporal framing is crucial for discussing long-term goals, making forecasts, project planning, or talking about accomplishments or states that will be achieved before a certain future deadline. It's fundamental in many professional and academic contexts where future milestones are discussed.
Okay, tenses definitely give us a lot to think about regarding time. Now, let's turn our attention to some small but incredibly significant words that often cause confusion, even for fluent speakers. Articles. These are just three little words, and the. But they play a huge role. They essentially define whether we're talking about something specific or something general, and their correct usage is often seen as a hallmark of native-like fluency.
Yeah.
Getting them right matters.
Exactly. Articles might seem minuscule, almost insignificant, but they provide crucial contextual cues for the listener or reader. They act like signposts, guiding interpretation. They tell us whether you're referring to any instance of something, I need a pen, any pen will do, or to a particular unique or previously identified one. Did you bring the pen I lent you? That specific pen. This seemingly minor choice profoundly impacts the precision and clarity of your communication. And misusing them, while maybe not always catastrophic, can lead to subtle but persistent misunderstandings or just make the language feel slightly off.
Let's break them down. First, the indefinite articles, a and an. These are used when introducing a singular countable noun for the first time, or when referring to any one member of a group or class. The rule for choosing between them is based purely on sound, not spelling. We use a before words that begin with a consonant sound, and an before words that start with a vowel sound.
Sound is key.
Right, so it's a book, starts with B sound, a cat, a lamp. But it's an apple, starts with A sound, an orange, an umbrella. The tricky ones are words like hour or honest. They start with the consonant letter H, but the H is silent, so the first sound is a vowel. Therefore, it's an hour, an honest mistake.
Starts with A or.
Conversely, words like university or European start with a vowel letter, UE, but the identical sound is actually a consonant sound, Jugeris or Jer. So it's a university, a European country.
That catches a lot of people out. It's always about the sound the following word starts with.
These articles introduce new or general, non-specific nouns into the conversation. I saw a dog in the park implies you saw one dog. It's new information, not a specific dog the listener already knows about. The nuanced challenge here, especially for learners, is often in knowing when not to use an article at all, the so-called zero article. We typically don't use a or an with plural nouns. I like dogs, not I like a dogs. Or with uncountable nouns when speaking generally. Information is key, not an information is key.
Or general abstract concepts.
Right, like love is complicated or we need patience. The zero article usage is a common stumbling block.
Indefinite articles signal that a noun is being introduced for the first time into the discourse, or that it represents one example from a category. They highlight generality or novelty. But the absence of an article, the zero article you mentioned, is equally significant and follows its own complex set of rules. As you said, it's common with plural count nouns used generally. Cats are independent. And with mass or uncountable nouns used generally. Water is essential. Advice is helpful.
So you wouldn't say a water is essential?
No, not in that general sense. Also, when referring to abstract concepts or general categories, we often omit articles. Knowledge is power, history repeats itself, life is short. Deciding when to use a han, the, or no article at all, especially navigating the distinctions between mass nouns like furniture research versus count nouns like chair, study, often marks the difference between proficient and truly masterful command of English subtleties. This is where the deep dive into usage really begins.
Okay, so a and an for general singulars. Now, for the big one. The definite article. The. We use the when we're referring to something specific, something that is unique or something that has already been mentioned or is clearly understood from the context, and is therefore known or identifiable to both the speaker and the listener. It points to a particular, identifiable item, person, or concept.
It signals known or specific information.
Consider the dog example again. I saw a dog in the park. Introduces a general dog. Then maybe later the dog was chasing a squirrel. Now we're talking about that specific dog I already mentioned.
The listener knows which dog you mean now.
Or if you walk into a room and say, please close the door. This implies there's a specific door in the immediate context, probably only one open door, that both parties understand you're referring to. You don't need to say a door.
The context makes it specific.
Where the can get a bit tricky is with rules around proper nouns or unique entities. We naturally say the sun, the moon, the sky, the internet, because they're generally considered unique in our shared context.
Only one sun in our solar system, etc.
Right. But the rules for geographical features are complex. We use that with mountain ranges, the Himalayas, the Alps, rivers, the Nile, the Thames, oceans, the Pacific, and deserts, the Sahara. But we don't typically use that with individual mountains, Mount Everest, not the Mount Everest, individual lakes, Lake Superior, not the Lake Superior unless you mean the body of water itself in a specific way, or most countries, France, not the France, cities or continents.
Yeah.
Though there are exceptions like the Netherlands or the United States.
Those exceptions often relate to plural names or names indicating a type of political entity. It's complex.
It really is. Understanding these specific, sometimes seemingly arbitrary conventions for geographical features, institutions, the University of Oxford versus just Oxford University, or unique titles adds a layer of sophistication to your English.
The definite article "the" acts as a crucial signal of shared knowledge or assumed uniqueness within the communicative context. It's how we establish common ground in a conversation, often without needing lengthy, explicit clarification. When you use "the," you're essentially making an assumption about your listener's ability to identify the specific referent.
You assume they know which one you mean.
Precisely. The complexity often arises in situations where the specificity isn't immediately obvious from prior mention, but is implied by the context or modifying phrases. For example, referring to specific instances of abstract nouns. I appreciate the honesty you showed me yesterday.
Ah, okay. Honesty is abstract, but the makes it specific to that particular act of honesty.
Exactly. Or using "the" with superlatives, the best option, or ordinal numbers the first time. Mastering articles isn't just about sounding grammatically correct, it's fundamentally about conveying a precise level of shared context and specificity, which is absolutely fundamental to efficient and unambiguous communication.
So much packed into those tiny words. Okay, now we delve into a rule that ensures sentences sound correct and harmonious, and it's quite a common area for subtle errors, even for native speakers. Subject-verb agreement. This fundamental grammatical principle states that the subject and the main verb in sentence must match or agree in number. Basically, if the subject is singular, the verb form must also be singular. If the subject is plural, the verb form must be plural. They have to be in sync.
Harmony, as you said, keeps the sentence balanced.
Let's look at simple examples that highlight this clearly. She, that's a singular subject. Eats, that's the singular verb form in the present tense. Breakfast every morning. Notice the crucial S on eats. Now compare that directly to they, that's plural subject, eat, that's the plural verb form, no S. Breakfast every morning.
Singular subject, singular verb, plural subject, plural verb.
Exactly. The key practical rule to remember for the present tense with regular verbs is this. You add an S or E to the base form of the verb when the subject is third person singular, he, she, it, or any singular noun like the dog, the report. Example, he runs, she works, it seems, the report shows. But you do not add an S when the subject is plural, they, we, or plural nouns like the dogs, the reports, or when the subject is I or you, example, they run, we work, the reports show, I run, you work.
That final S on the third-person singular present tense verb is a core feature of English agreement.
But where it gets more complex and where errors often creep in are those trickier cases involving more complex subjects.
Things aren't always simple singular or plural nouns.
Right. What about phrases like one of the students or the group of managers?
Good examples.
In one of the students is late, the true subject is one, which is singular even though it's followed by the plural noun students in the prepositional phrase. So the verb must be singular. Is, not are.
Correct. The verb agrees with one, not students.
Conversely, consider the students, along with their professor, are preparing for the conference. Here, the core subject is students, which is plural. The phrase, along with their professor, is just an interrupting phrase. It doesn't change the number of the subject. So the verb must be plural, are, not is.
The professor isn't part of the grammatical subject in that construction.
These are the kinds of nuances identifying the true subject, especially when it's separated from the verb or involves tricky constructions that trip up even fluent writers. Mastering them is a clear sign of grammatical sophistication.
This raises an important question. Why is this agreement so vital? Beyond just sounding right or passing a grammar test, what's the functional importance?
Good question. What is it?
Well, subject-verb agreement is fundamental to logical clarity and processing ease for the reader or listener. When the subject and verb don't agree, it creates a subtle cognitive dissonance, a slight bump in the road. It can force the reader to pause, reread, or mentally correct the sentence. In more formal contexts, this kind of error can undermine the credibility of the writer. It might suggest a lack of attention to detail, carelessness, or even, unfairly perhaps, a weaker command of the language itself.
Especially in professional or academic writing.
Absolutely. Precision is often paramount there. Furthermore, understanding agreement with more complex subjects like collective nouns, for example, deciding between the committee is meeting if seen as a unit versus the committee are debating among themselves if seen as individuals, demonstrates real mastery.
Or those indefinite pronouns.
Yes. Pronouns like each, every, anyone, nobody, either, neither are grammatically singular and always take a singular verb. Your example, each of the applicants has submitted a resume, not have. Getting these right ensures that your sentences not only convey the intended meaning, but do so with impeccable internal consistency and grammatical harmony. It's about making the language work smoothly for the listener without creating unnecessary friction or confusion.
Okay, makes sense. It's about clarity and credibility as much as rules. Right. You've now hopefully got a more robust understanding of the basic grammar rules and, importantly, how they stretch into nuanced usage. So let's pivot now to practical application. Common grammar mistakes to avoid. These aren't just minor slips of the pen or keyboard. In professional or academic contexts, consistently making these errors can subtly but significantly undermine your credibility and the overall impact of your message. Knowing these pitfalls will help you truly polish your communication and project competence.
Exactly. This section is less about learning entirely new rules and more about refining your awareness of frequently misused elements, often homophones or near homophones, that can easily detract from an otherwise well-crafted message. These are the kinds of errors that often go unnoticed or forgiven in very casual conversation, but can signal a lack of precision or care in formal written communication. Recognizing and consciously avoiding these distinctions significantly enhances your linguistic authority and perceived professionalism.
All right, let's tackle mistake number one, a real classic. Confusing its and its. This is a perennial favorite for error. Even among, highly educated, seasoned writers, it trips people up constantly.
It really does. Simple but pervasive.
Okay, so its, its, no apostrophe, is the possessive pronoun. It indicates ownership or belonging associated with it, much like his shows possession for he or hers for she. For example, the company presented its annual report. The report belongs to the company, it. Or the cat chased its tail. The tail belongs to the cat, it, possession.
Showing ownership by a thing or an unspecified entity.
On the other hand, its it''s is a contraction. It's a shortened form of two possible phrases. It is, or it has. For example, it's raining outside, meaning it is raining outside. Or, it's a beautiful day, it is. Or, it could be short for it has, as in, it's been a long day, meaning it has been a long day.
The apostrophe signals the missing letter S from is or ha from has.
Exactly. The impact of confusing these two might seem small, but in formal writing reports, emails, articles, academic papers, it's often considered a glaring error. It immediately signals a potential lack of attention to detail, which can detract from the seriousness or professionalism of your content. My simple memory aid, which I still use sometimes, is if you can replace the word with it is or it has and the sentence still makes sense, use the apostrophe it's. If not, and it shows possession, use its. So its tail makes sense, it is tail does not. It's raining makes sense, it's raining does not.
That's a very reliable test. These homophones, words that sound the same but have different meanings and spellings, are a classic tripping point precisely because pronunciation offers absolutely no clue to their distinct grammatical function. You have to know the difference. In written communication, particularly in things like business proposals, job applications, academic papers, or official statements, this error can unfortunately undermine the author's credibility. It might make them appear less meticulous, less careful, or even less educated than they actually are.
It's one of those quick visual cues.
It is. It's one of those subtle cues that a careful reader, especially an editor or evaluator, picks up on immediately. And while it might not usually change the core meaning drastically, it can certainly change the perception of the message and the messenger. It's an easy fix with spell check or proofreading, but one with disproportionate impact if missed.
Okay, noted. Be vigilant with its and its. Now for our second common mistake, using there, and there incorrectly. Another set of homophones that cause widespread confusion, but whose meanings are completely different.
The THERE family of confusion.
Exactly. First, let's take there. THERE. This word most commonly refers to a place or a position. Think of it as often being the opposite of here. For example, please put the books over there, points to a location. It can also be used to introduce a sentence or clause, often with the verb to be, indicating existence. For example, there's a solution to this problem, or there are several options available.
Location or existence.
Second, we have their, THEIR. This is the possessive pronoun for they. It indicates ownership or belonging by a group of people or things. Example, the students submitted their assignments. The assignments belong to the students, they. Or, this is their house. The house belongs to them. Shows possession by them.
Belonging to they.
And finally, we have their, THEY''RE. This is simply a contraction, a shortened form of they are. Example, they're planning a new initiative. It means exactly they're planning a new initiative, or they're happy with the results. They are happy.
The apostrophe replaces the A and R.
Misusing these three is perhaps one of the most frequent and noticeable errors in both casual and professional writing alike. It's not just a minor grammatical slip, it can literally change the meaning of your sentence, causing real confusion or making your writing seem sloppy and unedited. My memory aid for this trio, there often involves location. I think here is inside there. There shows possession and has an I like I possess. And there means that they are. The apostrophe reminds you it's a contraction. Practice visualizing those meanings when you type or write them.
These three words are indeed a linguistic minefield, purely because they sound identical in most accents. However, their grammatical functions and meanings are so fundamentally distinct that confusing them can lead to significant clarity issues, much more so than its sometimes. Imagine reading a critical instruction in a manual that says, ensure their components are fixed there. It's almost nonsensical.
Yeah, your brain just stumbles over it.
Exactly. The immediate breakdown of precision makes the entire statement seem amateurish or unreliable. In formal contexts, reports, legal documents, academic work, these errors are particularly glaring and can seriously detract from the perceived seriousness or professionalism of the communication. Precise use demonstrates attention to detail and a fundamental commitment to clear, unambiguous expression, which is invaluable in pretty much any field where information accuracy matters.
Okay, point taken. Master their distinction. And for our third common mistake today, another pair of homophones, mixing up your and your. This follows the exact same pattern, sounds the same, tiny apostrophe makes all the difference.
Another classic contraction versus possessive confusion.
Exactly. Your, Y-O-U-R, is the possessive form of you. It shows that something belongs to you, the person being addressed. For example, is this your proposal? The proposal belongs to you. I like your ideas. The ideas belong to you, simple possession.
Belonging to you.
Your, Y-O-U''RE, on the other hand, is the contraction of you are. For example, you're an excellent presenter. This means precisely you are an excellent presenter. Or, tell me when you're ready. You are ready.
The apostrophe replaces the A and R.
This error is probably just as common as and carries very similar weight in terms of perceived precision and professionalism. In our world, which is absolutely saturated with quick digital communication, emails, text, social media posts, internal messages, these errors are amplified and instantly noticeable. They jump out at the reader. The simple memory aid, again, mirrors the others. If you can substitute you are, and the sentence still makes grammatical sense, use the apostrophe your. If it shows possession, use your. So your ideas make sense. Your ideas does not. You're ready makes sense. You're ready does not. Make it a habit to mentally expand the contraction or check for possession every time you write it, at least until it becomes second nature.
It's absolutely crucial to continuously reinforce the distinction between these contractions. It's their, your, and their corresponding possessive pronouns. It's their, your. These particular errors, perhaps because they involve such common words and basic grammatical functions, act as immediate red flags for a reader who values grammatical precision. Imagine receiving a cover letter for a job application or a proposal seeking funding that contains several instances of these mistakes. Even subconsciously, it can inadvertently signal a lack of rigor, poor proofreading skills, or a general lack of attention to detail qualities you absolutely don't want to convey in those situations.
It undermines the message before they even get to the substance.
Precisely. Mastering these basic homophone distinctions doesn't just make your writing technically correct, it significantly elevates its clarity, its professionalism, and ultimately its persuasive impact. It reflects a fundamental respect for your audience and for the craft of communication itself. Don't let these small things trip you up.
Well done. Seriously, if you've stuck with us, you've made it through a truly comprehensive deep dive into the fundamentals of English grammar. But I hope, more importantly, you've gained insight into the nuances and the real power embedded within these building blocks. We've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? Moving beyond just the mere definitions you might have learned years ago, to explore the subtle ways each grammatical choice, verb tense, article usage, sentence structure, shapes meaning and impacts perception.
It's been quite a journey through the mechanics of language.
Think about the path we took. We started by appreciating grammar not as dusty rules, but as the essential blueprint for creating shared meaning. Then we pulled apart the 8 essential parts of speech, not just identifying them, but trying to understand their deeper functional roles and potential complexities, nouns as anchors, verbs as engines, and so on. We then moved on to how these parts combine into complete thoughts, exploring the fundamental subject-verb-object sentence structure, and, crucially, how its expansion allows for incredible detail and sophistication without sacrificing clarity. From there, we navigated the critical concept of tenses present, past, and future, diving into their subtle distinctions for conveying precise timelines and relationships between events.
The timekeepers.
We then zoomed in on those tricky little articles a, and how they signal specificity or generality, guiding the listener's understanding. Before reinforcing the crucial harmony of subject-verb agreement, making sure subjects and verbs dance together correctly. And finally, we armed you with the insights to recognize and avoid some of the most common, yet potentially credibility-damaging grammar mistakes involving homophones, like it's there, and you are.
Building awareness of those common pitfalls.
Remember, language is a living, breathing, evolving system. Mastery isn't a destination you arrive at one day. It's an ongoing process of observation, learning, and practice. So please, don't worry if some of these deeper nuances or distinctions feel challenging at first. That's perfectly normal. The more you consciously immerse yourself in reading quality writing, listening critically to articulate speakers, and deliberately practicing your own writing and speaking with these principles in mind, the more natural and intuitive these advanced grammatical patterns will become for you.
It really does start to click with consistent mindful exposure and application. You develop an ear for it.
You really do.
So now that you have these fundamental tools refreshed and perhaps crucially a better understanding of their deeper implications and power, consider this final thought. How does this enhanced grasp of grammar empower you not just to avoid basic mistakes, but to actively sculpt more nuanced, more compelling, more precise, and perhaps even more truly creative expressions in your own communication? What new possibilities for persuasion, for clearer explanation, for richer storytelling, for more impactful factual reporting? What does this foundational and now hopefully deepened knowledge open up for you in your specific professional or personal endeavors?
That's a great question to ponder.
It's not just about adhering to rules. It's about unlocking the full, sophisticated potential of your voice and ensuring your message always lands with the clarity, precision, and impact you intend. What can you build with these tools now?
Absolutely. Keep practicing. Keep exploring the richness of the language, and keep using these amazing linguistic tools to their fullest potential. That wraps up this deep dive into the building blocks of English grammar. We sincerely hope you found it insightful and, above all, empowering. Join us next time on The Deep Dive for another exploration.